Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So welcome to another episode of Christian Apologetics. I'm sorry guys, I don't have the camera today, so you're not going to be able to see me in the bottom right corner. But anyway, I wanted to share with you this video, and this video is especially addressing my atheist friends or anyone that's watching my content that no, it's not a Christian. Now lately I've been reading some social media, engaging with different comments, and I found that the God of the gaps argument used by atheists and by skeptics is very common. It's still, even though it has been debunked and has been proven false by many theists and atheists alike, so this argument has been critiqued by both sides, it's still very common, very famous online. And I don't really know why. And this video is done as a encouragement for my atheist friends. Do not use this argument. You're gonna just end up embarrassing yourself. You're gonna end up just showing how ignorant you are and how just not factual you are, how intellectual dishonest you are, because this argument has been already proven false. So if you keep using it, it's just, you're not doing anyone any help, not even for yourself. You're not even making yourself appear the champion of truth and logic and reason, as atheists like to portray themselves. So I'm going to show you in this video two reasons as to why you shouldn't use this argument. First of all, because of the fact that this argument is in reality a misrepresentation and a strawman of the theist position. No serious theist is ever gonna use an argument such as, we have gaps in our scientific understanding. We have gaps in science. So there are things that we do not understand yet about science, but and therefore God. Therefore, God did it. Therefore, God is the one that explains these things that we do not know yet. God is the answer. And of course, this is nonsense. This is a non sequitur, first of all. And second thing, no serious theist ever argues in this way. All the arguments that theists use are either deductive or inductive, but they're all reasonable arguments. And for example, I'm going to show you the cosmological argument portrayed by William Lane Craig. So this argument has two premises and the conclusion. If the two premises are true, then the conclusion necessarily it follows. So it can't be false. The conclusion must be true. And the argument is such as this: whatever begins to exist has a cause of its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause of its existence. That's it. And now the theist, what they do is they give then additional arguments as to what attributes and properties the cause of the universe must have in order to be the cause of the universe. So because in the universe we see space, time, and matter, the cause of the universe can't be space, time, and matter, right? So it must be immaterial, it must be spaceless, and it must be timeless or eternal. Then we understand that this cause must be very powerful in order to have then the ability, and the power to create and infuse the universe with energy. Then it must be personal, because impersonal forces that have no will, that do not choose, cannot cause anything other than just reacting. Impersonal forces react. They do not. They're not direct causes. They are indirect causes. And then we start adding more of the attributes of this cause. And this cause with all these attributes is what we call God. God is the cause that it's immaterial, spaceless, eternal, personal, moral, powerful cause of the universe. That's it. That's how we define God. Now, if we don't agree with that we're not agreeing with the deductive reasoning that the theist is proposing. But you can see that in no point in this argument, and again, this is just an example, but I could talk about any argument for God's existence in this way. There is no God of the gaps anywhere. No serious theist is going to say, well, we do not know, therefore God. We do not know this, therefore God did it, or therefore God is the answer. So, and again, this is just deductive reasoning. It's not like we're making this up, saying that the cause must be eternal, must be spaceless, must be material because of whatever, because we want to believe there is a God. The cause has to have these properties because in the universe we observe and we know that there is space, time, and matter and energy. So that's the reasoning, right? And again, so therefore the atheist is forced to either prove the first premise false or prove the second premise false. In the second premise, I know there is the counter argument that the universe is eternal, or that the multiverse, and but all these explanations that atheists try to propose to try to argue that this is not the case, that the universe did not begin to exist, are just fallacious, and they're not really explain in the best way possible the data, the scientific data that we have about the universe. There is almost a consensus in scientists that the universe did have a beginning, did begin to exist. So there was a point in time where the universe didn't exist, and then it began to exist. And this is the most widespread position, about the universe. The other premise is that whatever begins to exist as a cause of its existence, well, the atheist is actually forced to prove that there are things that do not need a cause to begin to exist. But of course, if this premise is false, then we would have evidence for it. We would see that things start to popping into existence out of nothing without any cause. But of course, this is not the case. We have no evidence for this, that things can begin to exist without a cause. There is always a cause, and actually the first or second thermodynamic law actually states that that for every action there is a reaction, and so energy is not created nor destroyed; is always converted. So that's the idea. So that's why this first premise cannot be proven false by atheists. And therefore, you can see that this argument, because of the fact that the first premise and second premise are true, or at least so far, no atheist has been able to prove that they are false, the conclusion necessarily is true, necessarily follows. And as I said before, the cause is what we call God, because it must have certain attributes from what we observe from the universe. Now, the second reason why you don't want to use this God of the gaps argument is because of the fact that the atheist worldview is itself committing the same fallacy, committing the science of the gaps fallacy or argument. So rather than being God of the gaps, it becomes science of the gaps. So how is this argument? Well, very simple. The atheist says, well, there are many things that science can't explain yet, but there will come a day where science will be able to explain everything. So we'll be able to finally prove that God is not needed for anything. We can prove everything only and just with science. And now see the issue here? The atheist has actually a blind faith that science will be able to explain everything. There is no evidence for that, right? It's just a science of the gaps argument. So the atheist believes that whatever gaps we have in terms of scientific understanding will be filled by science. Science will fill those gaps, and that's a science of the gaps argument. So you have blind faith. You are assuming, you're presupposing that science will be the answer, that science will fill those gaps. And I see the problem here. So again, in this case, in this picture, there is the argument for life. So life appearing from non-life. This is again another argument for God existence. And so it says here, to ignore the impossibility of life arising by chance with the assertion, we'll figure it out someday, is not rational. It's a science of the gaps argument. And now, what is the presupposition that the atheist takes for granted? And that is the presupposition that it's actually without any justification. And that's why it's actually a fallacious argument. Is the fact that naturalism can account for everything. So the atheist, because they are denying the existence of a God or a supernatural being and a supernatural activity, they are forced to believe that, well, everything has to be explained by matter. Everything must have a materialistic cause because the supernatural doesn't exist, because you're presupposing that the supernatural doesn't exist, and you're also pre-assuming that only matter exists, and therefore that there must be a natural cause for everything. So that all the gaps that we do not know in terms of nowadays, in terms of scientific understanding, well, no, there must be a natural cause also for those things that we don't yet understand. So yeah, we do not really understand how can life appear from non-life, but eventually, because of the fact that God doesn't exist, and there must be a materialist cause, well, eventually we're going to find out how. We'll figure out how can life appear from non-life pure by materialistic processes. And that's a blind faith argument, that's a fallacious argument, that's a science of the gaps argument. And again, presupposing that there must be a natural cause. And yeah, so that's it. So those are the two reasons why this argument is bad. Do not use it. Do not use it anymore in social media, on online platforms, on comments, because you're just embarrassing yourself. You're just showing that you're not really critically thinking about the argument. You're not really critically thinking and understanding what the Christians, what the theists are saying, what the arguments are proving. And again, this same argument can be used against atheism and against its worldview. And again, the atheist has no response because they have this presupposition that everything has a materialistic cause, that naturalism is true. And again, there is no evidence for that. There is no evidence that this is true. It's a philosophical assertion, it's a philosophical position that has no justification. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see ya. God bless you.